Hey there and welcome to my channel Schön, erklärt. My name is Laura and today I'm super excited because we are gonna start the first knit along that I ever organized. In the course of 3 videos we are going together to knit the Pure Pleasure top from Wooladdicts, which will end up looking like this, or also like this, or like this. So first things first, before we can start, you need to purchase the pattern for the Pure Pleasure top from Wooladdicts. And for this you actually have 2 different possibilities. So you can either do this online with the link right here, or I also put it down below in the description of the video, or you can do it like I did and purchase the paperback, which would be the magazine Wooladdicts from Long Yarns, where you have a collection of all different kinds of patterns available. And it also comes with this little how-to booklet where you find the collection of all the patterns that are included in this little Wooladdicts magazine. The issue is number 4. After you've done that and purchased your pattern, be sure to measure yourself properly to find out what size you should knit. So I measured my bust circumference, I have no idea if I pronounced this word correctly, with a measuring tape, and I ended up at 88. And 88 was a size M, according to the Wooladdicts. I can also add you the link to the size chart of Wooladdicts down below, so you can double check what size you should knit. So after you've measured your body and you found out what size is the perfect size for you, the next step will be to order your yarn. So of course the suggested yarn in this pattern is a yarn from the brand Long Yarns, or Wooladdicts actually more specific, and it's the yarn Liberty. Well, I don't know what to say to that, but I know why this yarn is called Liberty, because basically it has a life of its own. So I can already tell you the challenge in this pattern will not be the pattern itself, it will be the yarn, especially for the beginners. But don't worry, after a while you get the hang of it and you get a bit of feeling for how to handle this yarn, and it will get easier. But in the beginning, just don't lose your patience, please. You can see in the pattern how many balls of yarn you need to order for the size that you want to knit. And also, of course, you can substitute this yarn with a different yarn with a similar yardage, whatever you would like, of course. But there I would really watch out to take a summer yarn or a summer mix yarn. That means that it's maybe based on cotton or bamboo or linen or something like this. Actually linen, I'm not sure if there's like such a thick linen yarn, I don't know if that would feel nice. So just go for something as similar as possible, just to be sure. For this pattern you will also need a needle size 6, or in my case, as you will see later on, actually needle size 7. Some stitch markers, a ruler or a measuring band, and scissors. And when you're all set with that, we can actually start and jump right in. What we will do in this video is we will first start with all the materials that you need, and then we will go over to creating a gauge swatch. A gauge swatch means that you try to find out if your knitting style, the wool you chose, and the needle size suggested together creates the right amount of stitches and rows on 10 centimeters that you need to have to reach the right size of the garment. Then also we cover what you have to do if you don't reach gauge, because I didn't. You will see that in a moment, and that's actually already it for the video today. So let's jump in. Now that you've got your materials all set, we will start by creating a little gauge swatch. A gauge swatch means that we're trying to figure out how many stitches and how many rows you will need with this particular yarn and the needle number 6 and your individual knitting style to create a 10 by 10 centimeter square. So there's only one way to find out if your knitting style is right to reach those 10 by 10 centimeters, and that is to make a gauge swatch. For this, of course, we start by taking off the the ball band. And we're trying to find the beginning of the yarn in the inside of the ball. We're doing this because it will make our life much easier while you're knitting, because the yarn ball will not move around, which can sometimes create kind of a mess. But also here I really like to make a quick note that it's not always possible to find the beginning of the yarn inside the ball. So here, for example, is the one outside, so in case we don't find the one inside, you can always start with that one. So I actually found it, but I pulled out a bit of a lump, but that doesn't matter, it's not really that bad. Okay, so we found the end of the yarn within the ball, and what we will need to do now is we will start casting on our stitches. So we want to reach 11 stitches in width to create 10 centimeters. But even so, we will cast on a bit more because we will make a little garter stitch rib edge in order for the gauge swatch not to curl. That means that we will cast on about 20 stitches. So to cast on 20 stitches, you will have to think a bit how much of the yarn you will need. There is a rule of thumb that says about 2 centimeters per stitch that you want to cast on, but as we are casting on with quite a thick yarn and quite thick needles, I would suggest to take a bit more than 2 centimeters. So let's say we take 3 centimeters per stitch. And we want to cast on 20 stitches. This means we will need 60 centimeters of yarn. For this, I quickly take my measuring band, like this. I have 20, 40, 60. And I'll add a bit more just to be on the safe side. I make my slip knot. If you're not sure anymore how to do a slip knot, you can head over to my how to do a long tail cast on video to get a little repetition of what we did. You bring in the needle, tighten the slip knot, and start casting on your 20 stitches. Okay, so now that we've cast on our 20 stitches, we can start knitting. I told you before that we're making a little garter stitch rib edge, so in order for the gauge swatch not to curl too much. This means we will start with a purl row, and then we will continue to knit the stockinette stitch for 3 rows. And you will see this will create kind of like a rib style. So now we've made our purl row, and I will knit now in stockinette stitch this way, the other way, and this way again. Now is that we've created kind of like a ribbed edge. I mean, I agree you don't see that well because of this type of yarn that we're using here. But even so, you can see that we have some purls, and in between the purls a little V. This will prevent the gauge swatch later on to curl, and it will make it more easier for us to measure it afterwards. So what we will do now, knit in stockinette stitch for 3 stitches, then we'll continue to purl all the way until you reach the 3 last stitches, and then you will knit them in stockinette stitch again. This way you will continue to create this kind of rib edge also on the 2 sides of the gauge swatch. So I have here my finished gauge swatch that I knitted with the needle 6. And the target of this gauge swatch again is to find out if my style of knitting is accurate for the wool and the needle suggested in order for me to get the right size of the pattern. So to measure how many stitches I need to make 10 centimeters across and how many rows to make 10 centimeters in height, I just simply take a ruler or a measuring band. So I'm simply taking a ruler and place it on my gauge swatch. In order for it to be easier to count the stitches, I usually use some kind of needle, or you can use a knitting needle or whatever you have, but it's really helpful not to lose track of what you're actually counting, and believe me, I still lose track. So whatever help you can get, I can suggest you using. You want to place the ruler in according that it starts where a little V starts. So here we have a little V shape of the stitch, and what we want to do is we want to count how many V's, so how many stitches I need to make 10 centimeters. Here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. This is really unfortunate because if you remember correctly, we were supposed to have 11 stitches, and I'm going to tell you in a second what we can do now. But first we're also counting our rows. For this I just simply turn my gauge swatch, place the ruler again. So to start the rows, especially with a yarn like this, which is a bit fluffy and maybe doesn't make it that easy to count the stitches or the rows, you can also insert the needle in this little V and pull it down. And while pulling it down, you can feel the stitch from the back, and it makes it easier to count. I will do that right now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So here you can see I have too many rows compared to the gauge that the producer, Long Yarns, suggested us to get. Okay, so we have just measured the gauge swatch that I created, and we found out that I use 14 stitches to get 10 centimeters and 20 stitches, or 19 stitches, I don't remember now, but anyway, too many to create 10 centimeters in height. So what does this mean? Well, this is because I'm quite a tight knitter, and I actually usually have this problem. So almost never I hit the gauge on the first spot or on the first try. So what I will do now is I will increase my needle size, because if you think about it, I'm making too many stitches in 10 centimeters. So what I want to do is I want to decrease the amount of stitches I use to make 10 centimeters. Therefore, I will increase my needle size. If you have not enough stitches to make 10 centimeters compared to the gauge, you will have to do the opposite, so you will have to decrease your needle size. So on top of this little gauge pile that we have here, you can see the original gauge swatch that we made with the needle size 6. As I didn't reach the right amount of count of stitches or rows, I increased my needle size. And already you can see that the new swatch is a tiny bit bigger than the original swatch, which is a great sign. It means that because I cast on the same amount of stitches for both swatches, it means that my new swatch has turned out bigger, and that's a good sign because I want to reduce my amount of stitches per 10 centimeters. After counting my stitches and my rows, I realized that with the needle number 7 I have reached gauge, which means I'm all ready to start my new knitting project. Okay, so now that I reached gauge, I'm absolutely ready to start knitting my Pure Pleasure top, which is exactly what we're gonna do in next week's video. Together we will cast on the back side of the Pure Pleasure top. We will knit all the way to a certain mark where we'll put stitch markers. This is the place where the front and the back will be combined in video number 3. And we will knit all the way to the shoulders and the neckline and finish the back part of the Pure Pleasure top as best as we can before combining the front and the back. In video number 3, we will start with the front of the Pure Pleasure top and combine the two pieces together and finalize our garment. So within just 3 weeks, you will have created your own Pure Pleasure top by Wooladdicts together with me. I hope I can guide you through the critical steps in those 3 videos. And I would say you should head over to purchase the pattern right now, get your yarn, get your needles, make your gauge swatch and be ready for next week's video. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification button so you don't miss the upload of the next video and you can start casting on for your Pure Pleasure top. Thanks for watching and see you all next week. Bye!